Let's go ahead and get them ready to battle. Hopefully both players have kept nice 7s, and we can see some good fair magic that involve 4 Primeval Titans on turn 2.
So since both of these decks are primarily proactive decks and actually don't have that much interaction, I would assume that whoever's on the play is going to be a big deal, and John is, off to the races.
Yes, looks like John does have an Aether Vial on 1, which is what he wants, but John-Mikel Whalen does have Slayer Stronghold into an Amulet of Vigor, and I saw Summer Bloom was his draw for the turn. So it looks like he has the potential to put a Primeval Titan on the battlefield next turn if he draws one. So it looks like John Taylor's just going to go ahead and put a counter on his Aether Vial. He's going to play a Master of the Pearl Trident. And John-Mikel Whalen has now drawn a Summoner's Pact to go along with his Summer Bloom and his bounce lands to put a Titan on the battlefield. Now, because it is a Summoner's Pact, he does have to be wary of a Spreading Seas out of John Taylor's hand on the next turn, so he has to make sure that he can still pay for this pact even through a Spreading Seas if John Taylor happens to have it. So what we have here, Summer Bloom is going to give him 3 additional land drops. He's going to make 6 mana. He's going to cast a Primeval Titan. He's going to be able to go and get a Boros Garrison, which is going to turn on his Slayer Stronghold, and another land, which is actually real good that he has that Slayer Stronghold on the battlefield already, since he gets to get an additional land out of this Primeval Titan, which is going to let him attack.
Yeah, nice 2/2. I have a 6/6 that's attacking, that's going to be coming an 8/6, and I'm putting a bunch of mana in play.
Wasn't even in his hand. He drew Summer Bloom, Summoner's Pact for his 2 draw steps.
Mm-hmm.
So his opener was 6-land Amulet of Vigor.
Yeah, and this really illustrates that if you're going to be playing a deck that is primarily based on deploying threats to the board, you got to make sure that you're fast.
He has Boros Garrison in his hand.
Ooh, does he not have another one that he can search up?
No, it only plays 1, so I think he's going to get Gruul Turf, so he's going to be able to activate his Stronghold this way.
Yeah, this Amulet Bloom deck is one of the more complicated decks in the format. A lot of the cards are cards that people just aren't familiar with, and it leads to not only is it difficult to play against, it's difficult to play even when you're practiced.
So I believe he still has to bounce a land from his Gruul Turf, which he did the Slayer Stronghold. Now he's going to be able to get 2 lands here. Now, the big risk is that John Taylor might be able to turn off his green mana, or just the amount of mana that he can generate with a Spreading Seas. And that's a definite possibility. If he just Spreading Seas one of these bounce lands, John-Mikel Whalen dies.
Well, he's got 2 lands that tap for 2 mana.
4, okay.
Yeah.
For some reason I thought the Spreading Seas made the land not actually produce any mana. So
no, the
fortunately he is still safe here.
Yeah.
No worries.
Just has it all covered.
I'm a little rusty, out of practice.
Yeah, no worries. We'll forgive you. Commentating's hard. I know, you're trying to talk it all out at the same time.
So John Taylor just took 8 there. He's down to 12. John-Mikel Whalen does still have this Primeval Titan on the battlefield.
And this has got to be frustrating for John. I mean, he had his best draw where he just went Aether Vial into Lord, and it's just not even close to good enough to compare.
And he was on the play.
Yeah, and he was on the play, and he's still just way behind.
So John has gone ahead and drawn a card for his turn. He put his Aether Vial up to 2, but I can't imagine there's a whole lot that he's going to be able to do at this point.
Sometimes these Merfolk decks will play cards like Vapor Snag so that they can impact the board a little bit, but it seems like John, all he has is 2 Dismembers, and that is not going to be enough to beat a Primeval Titan.
Fortunately, that is correct. So we've got a Aether Adept for John Taylor off of the Aether Vial. Aether on Aether action. He's gone ahead and drawn a card. It's looking like he's wanted to tap 3 mana here, so he could potentially have a Marrow Rejiri or a Kira. He is going to have a turn of reprieve here, where John-Mikel Whalen is going to have to tap a lot of his mana to not die this turn, but he still has the potential just to lose to a double striking Titan off of the triggers.
Yeah, John basically just has to commit as much power and toughness as he can onto the board and hope that he can basically force a trade with the Primeval Titan, but I feel that given John's ability to find lands that are going to pump the Titan even further, that's unlikely.
Yeah, with John having the Boros Garrison in his hand, I imagine he's going to play the Boros Garrison this turn and more than likely bounce one of his other bounce lands, or even the Gemstone Mine will be fine. And then on his attack from the Primeval Titan, he's going to go get Sunhome and another 2-mana land and give it double strike. So it's going to have to be blocked since it will potentially do 12 damage, and John Taylor is just going to be in a very tough spot.
Yeah, really showing the strength of this Amulet Boom deck. I mean, we've talked about it a little bit this weekend, although we haven't actually been able to see it in action. But this deck is really good, and this draw really illustrates why some people think that Summer Bloom needs to be banned.
It looks like instead, though, he's going to go ahead and transmute his Teleria West.
Looks like he may just want to set up to get another Titan.
Well, he doesn't have a Summer Bloom or any more. He doesn't have a Summer Bloom in his hand, and the max amount of mana that he can generate off of that Primeval Titan is going to be 4. So he's not going to be able to put a Titan onto the battlefield this turn.
Right. I think he's just setting up for next turn.
So he might just try and set up for a Titan for next turn.
Which isn't so bad.
Yeah, I guess he also is just going to get a Slaughter Pact here.
So that's pretty interesting. So he's basically looking to just attack and Slaughter Pact one of the Lords.
Well, he doesn't have any black mana yet. He might find some off his Primeval Titan.
Yeah, once he attacks, he'll probably be able to get some. I love the giving your deck to your opponent, and they just don't even care to cut it. John Taylor.
Oh, he needs to be careful that he's not putting those cards on his hand. Oh,
Yeah.
he's bouncing it back. Never mind. He's shortcutting. John-Mikel Whalen looks like he definitely has played with this deck quite a bit. I'm not sure if trying to set up for a Titan the following turn or getting that Slaughter Pact is what he actually needed to do. It might have been better just to threaten actual lethal with that Primeval Titan.
Yeah, as it stands right now, John Taylor can just sort of take the damage and set up to have better blocks next turn.
There's also the possibility that he could just draw into a Harbinger of the Tides, and that gives him a way to potentially tap something down, bounce something, maybe even stay alive for a turn, try and get some damage in.
Yeah, you know, that's a great point. A lot of these merfolks, they have a couple flex slots, and this week John Taylor is playing 4 Harbinger of the Tides, which is a card that you don't always see, but it's certainly a good one.
So now it looks like John Taylor is blocked with all 3 of his creatures. This means that John-Mikel Whalen is going to be able to use that Slaughter Pact, kill off all 3 of John Taylor's creatures, maybe even get a couple points of damage through, depending on what the total toughness was going to be. And now we've got a Spreading Seas on the
Wow.
Golgari Rot Farm is going to win the game for John Taylor.
Wow, so I guess that's why we saw the block, because he was just saying, you can do whatever you want.
Wow.
I'll Spreading Seas you and punk you out of this game.
Yeah, I feel like that has to have been a misstep for John-Mikel Whalen. He very easily could have gotten another black producing man like a Gemstone Mine on that Titan attack and bounced one of his bounce lands. That way he would be able to live through the Spreading Seas on his black source. He really had an embarrassment of riches. He didn't need that other Teleria West. He didn't really need to try and get to another Titan, is that one Titan that was in the battlefield was going to be enough over the next turn or so. And I have to imagine he's a little upset at himself.
Yeah, I have to imagine also. I mean, the Merfolk deck doesn't have that many pieces of interaction.
No.
So there's not that many things to play around, but it seems like, you know, John-Mikel was just playing around different things.
So let's go ahead and take a look at the sideboards and see what we think people are going to go ahead and do. So John Taylor has 3 Hurkyl's Recall, 2 Tidebinder Mage, 2 Spellskite, 2 Unified Will, 2 Ghost Quarter, 2 Relic of Progenitus, a Negate, and a Dispel. What do you think he's got going on here?
So I think the Tidebinder Mage has a certain amount of utility. He can either Violet it in and tap down a Titan before it can get a chance to attack, which isn't the greatest thing, but you know, he doesn't have that much interaction, and he's the slower aggro deck, so it may be a card that he goes to. Unified Will, Negate, and Dispel are all cards that he may want to bring in to provide additional sources of disruption, and then probably one of the best cards that he can bring in is the 2 Ghost Quarter, which he already has one of in his main. I think that's probably going to be one of his best paths to actually disrupting what the Amulet deck is doing, and trying to make it so that John Taylor can come out ahead instead of John-Mikel Whalen.
Yeah, John Taylor needs to slow the game down.
Yeah.
As long as John-Mikel Whalen isn't putting a Titan out to the battlefield on turn 2 or 3, John Taylor is going to have a chance to try and out-tempo him and get in a bunch of damage because his lords just grow almost exponentially. But in a game like that where we saw John-Mikel Whalen just happen to draw the Summer Bloom into Summoner's Pact, Titan on turn 2.
Really good draw.
Let's see what happens. Now, as far as John-Mikel Whalen is concerned, he has 2 Pyroclasm, 1 Swan Song, 4 Seal of Primordium, 3 Leyline of Sanctity, 1 Hornet Queen, 1 Forest, 1 Ghost Quarter, 1 Slaughter Pact, and 1 Engineered Explosives. So how much experience do you have playing Amulet Bloom, and what do you think he's going to sideboard?
You know, I don't even want to answer that question because I know you have so much experience with Amulet Bloom. So how about we just go to the expert and you tell me?
Well, I think that the Pyroclasms are definitely cards that he could potentially want to bring in. They do get outclassed fairly quickly with the Lords that John Taylor has access to, but it's still nice to have potential for that. Along with the Engineered Explosives is also very good at being able to sweep up some cards if we need to get into a little bit of a grindy game. I do like having the extra Slaughter Pact as well, just as a way to try and stay alive if we need to. Also, another way of winning against them is just to do a really quick Hive Mind because they can't actually pay for any of the green or black packs.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and take a look at our newsletter.
Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure.
StarCityGames.com does have an awesome newsletter, absolutely free to sign up for, and it is your source for Magic the Gathering news. You can get the latest on the SCG Tour. You can watch the SCG Tour match of the week, exclusive deck lists and advice, catch up on all the event results. You can read an exclusive cardboard crack comic, which is pretty funny. This last one was real good.
Really, really good.
And once again, the best part about it is it is absolutely free. So go.starcitygames.com/newsletter to sign up, and you can get that fresh into your inbox every week.
And I mentioned this before, but I'm going to say it again. For the spoilers that are coming out, deck building is going to be a really big thing, and if you want to be ahead of the curve, reading these articles is a great thing to do.
Absolutely. So again, we've got John Taylor on Merfolk. We've got John-Mikel Whalen on Amulet Bloom. John Taylor was able to steal a game there.
Yeah, that was a steal. That was,
on a slight mistake from John-Mikel Whalen, and man, I got to be a little upset.
Yeah, I mean, John-Mikel basically had, the check. He's writing his signature, bringing it to the bank to cash it, and then John Taylor just came, grabbed that check, and put it in his own bank account.
Ran away.
Mm-hmm.
Man. So let's go ahead while we wait for the players to finish shuffling up here. We got a bunch of questions that came out on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, Twitter was great to us.
So
great questions.
This is one from Jeffrey Wimbish for both of us, and he wants to know, who do we think is cooler, Jerry Thompson or Reed Duke?
Well, it's pretty clearly Reed Duke.
Pretty clearly?
Oh, yeah, no contest.
I mean, Reed may have a brother that works at Wizards R&D, but Jerry did work at Wizards R&D. I think that makes him pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry's cool, but Reed is literally one of the coolest people in Magic.
I mean, he has the coolest hair.
I mean,
close.
He's got the coolest decks.
Yours isn't bad. That's not gonna lie.
Reed's got the coolest decks. He's got the coolest moves. He's got a really nice uppercut that he does to his opponents whenever he wins a Grand Prix.
No, he's real nice. You think he uppercuts his opponents?
Well, he uppercuts me in playtesting sometimes, but I know that doesn't get out of Sugarloaf.
Well, I'm gonna have to go with my boy Jerry. I think Reed is probably the second coolest. Well, but I do think that Jerry is.
I think we should have Twitter break the tie. You say Jerry, I say Reed. Let's see what everyone else has to say.
All right, everybody, make sure you let us know. Tag us both. #SCGCHAR, so we can check it out, and we'll talk about it next round before we sign everything off. Let's go ahead and look at one other question here while these guys finish up their mulligans. Captain Nintendo wants to know if an Eldrazi control deck could be possible in Standard with all the new cards.
Yeah, well, I think that's a pretty interesting question because right now the Eldrazi deck that we have in Standard, the mono green one, when it's playing against other creature decks, it kind of operates like a control deck. I mean, it basically ramps into Ulamog, which is kind of like a 3-for-1, just 2 removal spells and a big body that has to get removed, or it's ramping up into Ugin. So I think in a lot of ways that kind of is a control deck. I mean, it's not the kind of control deck that is playing Dig Through Time and counter spells, but how it interacts with other creature decks is just the same as a control deck. So I think you're basically already halfway there, and with all the new cards, you may be able to push that even farther. Yeah,
I think that Eldrazi is going to be a big cornerstone of the new Standard, and we're really going to fall into this world where it's you either beat them or you join them, which I think is what's happening on Zendikar right now as we speak. You either have to beat them or they're going to bring you onto their side. So let's go ahead and jump back in our match. It looks like players have got their hands. I think John Taylor mulligan and shipped a card to the bottom. John-Mikel Whalen is on the play. Started off with Amulet of Vigor, which is always a scary proposition. Looks like he might have a Summer Bloom in his hand, but no bounce land, so it looks like John Taylor is safe for a second. He did lead on a Ghost Quarter, which is a pretty good start if you're not going to have Aether Vial.
Yeah, for sure. He certainly doesn't want to fire it off right away. And if he does fire off, he's probably going to want to target one of those bounce lands because they're essentially like 2 lands in one. But again, John Taylor, he really wants to start by getting some pressure on the board, and then while he's clocking his opponent, disrupt him to slow him down. Doing things in the reverse order a lot of times doesn't actually put you ahead on tempo.
For sure. So it looks like that John Taylor did have an Aether Vial, but opted to not cast it in order to hold up his Ghost Quarter. So I imagine that John-Mikel Whalen might try to do something here, since he did have he found a Golgari Rot Farm off of that sleight of hand, and he does already have Summer Bloom in his hand.
Yeah, and the fact that John Taylor chose to lead with Ghost Quarter instead of moving on with his proactive game plan is really showing a lot of respect to that Amulet of Vigor, really accepting that this Amulet Bloom deck has some explosive starts, and I need to be able to interact with it.
Yeah, so we see here John-Mikel Whalen, the way the sequencing works is he plays his Gold Turf, then we have some triggers that go on the stack, one of which being to untap, one of which being to return another land that he controls to his hand. With those still on the stack, John Taylor has gone ahead and used his Ghost Quarter to return the he's used his Ghost Quarter to target the Gruul Turf, which is going to allow John-Mikel Whalen to search out a land out of his deck. He does have to finish resolving the return trigger, which he's doing now with that Gemstone Mine, but he did still have a Summer Bloom. He has another bounce land in his hand, which means he's going to go crazy here with the Primeval Titan.
Yeah. Even still, I've been fairly impressed with John Taylor's play. It seems like he really knows what to do in this matchup. You know, I mean, the Amulet Bloom, it's a tough deck to play against, and it's a very, very complicated deck, and it's not that common either. I mean, it's becoming more common, but this isn't a deck that's been around for years and years. And so John Taylor seems to be navigating this matchup really, really well. He's shown proper respect to the explosive potential of this turn and kept his Ghost Quarter up. And last game, spreading seizing that one black source was quite the heads-up play as well.
Absolutely. Now, I know that John Taylor has been around for quite some time. He did make a little bit of a run last year for some points. So while John-Mikel Whalen is going through the motions here with Primeval Titan, let's take a look at John Taylor's profile, learn a little bit about him, and then we'll wrap up once we get back. So he is from Mooresville, North Carolina, a little bit local. He does have one open top 8, age of 23, but he does very well on the IQ circuit. So I imagine he's going to play in a bunch more opens this year. Student North Carolina, Charlotte, studying computer science, and he enjoys golf and bowling. 2 things which I am absolutely terrible at, so I'm sure that he would beat me single-handedly.
Yeah, I enjoy a lot of sports. Those 2 are not my particular favorite, so I can certainly appreciate someone who is good at them.
So let's go ahead and hop back and see where John-Mikel Whalen is at in his sequencing. So it looks like he did the old Boros Garrison Slayer Stronghold attack. The attack trigger is going to get a Simic Growth Chamber and Teleria West, puts Teleria West back into his hand. The end result, John Taylor is down 8 life. John-Mikel Whalen has 1,000,000 permanents on the battlefield and threatens to win the game next turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's night and day from one side of the board to the other. One player has 4 lands, a huge creature that generates a ton of value, and an artifact. And then on the other side of the board, John Taylor's side, we just have 2 lands, a measly 0-4, and an Aether Vial. Which
is usually what happens. Now, looks like John-Mikel Whalen does have another Summer Bloom in his hand. He also has a Teleria West, just an embarrassment of riches. He can end this game this turn. All he needs to do is get rid of that Spellskite so that he can give his Primeval Titan double strike. So I imagine we might see something along the lines here where he transmutes that Teleria West. Yeah, you could transmute that Teleria West to find a Slaughter Pact to get rid of the Spellskite, which will allow him to end the game by giving his Primeval Titan double strike.
And if that Aether Vial had 2 counters, John-Mikel Whalen might have to worry about something like a Harbinger of the Tides, possibly. But as it stands, John Taylor, there's not much he can do. John-Mikel Whalen doesn't have to play around a whole lot, so he can kind of do whatever he wants.
Now, these 2 games really highlight why I have the stance that I do on the deck in terms of which card I think should go, if a card does go, being Summer Bloom. And one of the reasons a lot of people have moved to playing Sleight of Hand in addition to their Serum Visions and or Ancient Stirrings is because you can win lots of games without Amulet of Vigor, but you're not going to win games if you don't have Summer Bloom or Azusa, because that's what allows you to cheat your mana with the bounce lands.
Yeah.
They don't technically have to come into play untapped. He very easily on that turn 2 could have just played a Summer Bloom, bounce land, pick up a land, bounce land, pick up a land, play a land, and then be able to cast a Titan on the following turn.
Yeah, I think Summer Bloom is a extremely powerful card. Whenever you have these unique cards that let you put permanent sources of mana into play, that is always something that you're going to be able to find some way of abusing.
So it looks like John-Mikel Whalen here is Transmuter's Teleria West. Again, if he does get a Slaughter Pact here, I can imagine he's just going to Slaughter Pact that Spellskite, and then when he attacks with his Primeval Titan, he's going to be able to get like a Vesuva to copy his Boros Garrison, Slayer Stronghold, give it double strike, 8 plus 12 is 20.
Man, the sequencing with this deck is really, really tricky. You got to be a real amulet scientist to play it.
It is. It definitely is. But it's fun. I actually did not like the Modern format until I started playing this deck.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a real sweet one. I mean, you get to play a little bit of a puzzle. I think a lot of the times when you're the Bloom player, you know that you've got sort of what you need to win the game. You're not exactly sure how to go about doing it, but then, you know, you get to
just figure it out.
Yeah, you just sit there and kind of figure it out.
Yeah, it definitely reminds me of Rubik's Cube. You sit there and you look at it, every side, every side, every side. You're like, all right, these are what I have to do to actually solve the puzzle.
It also reminds me of in the early days of Magic when they used to have, I believe it was Inquest, had some sort of puzzle in every single magazine where it was given a board state and it would give you these kooky goals like, you know, here's the board state, how can you make it so that you have 8 life, or how do you kill your opponent? And it was always a big puzzle of all these weird interactions, and a lot of that is what you see in Amulet Bloom.
So it looks like John is just going to do everything he can to make this as impossible for John Taylor to win. John-Mikel has put another Titan onto the battlefield. He's going to go ahead and, I imagine he's going to go ahead and use a Slaughter Pact on that Spellskite, give his new Primeval Titan haste, Vigilance +2/+0, and then attack for the win. At this point, we just kind of have to sit through the motions. Now, this is why I think the deck needs to go, is because it is, if you're John Taylor, do you think he's having a good time right now?
Oh, I think he's having a great time.
Yeah, he's just enjoying himself.
Oh, yeah, he's probably just rubbing his hands together, thinking this is great.
He's just like, I mean, he was real happy he was able to steal that first game.
Yeah, I mean, if I was him, that's all I'd be thinking about now.
Just got to clutch on to that one nice moment that happened.
Yep.
There's a lot of interaction here. John-Mikel Whalen is doing some pretty fair things.
I love John Taylor there, taking the Slaughter Pact and reading it as if he doesn't know what it does.
I imagine that he's making sure that it can hit artifact creatures.
Yeah. Still quite good, though.
All right, we're going to give the new one haste.
And we're going to attack for 1 million.
Well, it's technically not 1 million. 14 right now.
Yeah, well, when you're at 12 life, it might as well be 1 million.
Okay.
And the cards get picked up, and we're going to game 3.
Man, so these games have gone fairly quick. You wouldn't know, considering we have almost half the time has been used, primarily just because of all the searching and shuffling from the Amulet deck, which, again, is one of the downsides, but it is real fun to play.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that also we see in Legacy a lot, where a game may not go that many turns, but there's so many things to do on each turn that, you know, the match still has a lot of play, and it takes a long time to sequence through everything.
Absolutely. Now, playing the Amulet deck isn't easy, but learning how to play it is actually very, very fun. So we do have some content through Star City Games that is on our YouTube channel that you can check out on how to learn how to play Amulet, or any of the other content that we have. YouTube.com/Star City Games. You can see any of the Backlog Versus series, our premium archives. After a certain amount of time, everything that's on premium gets moved over to the YouTube page, so you can view it for free. Our Open Series archives, much like today. So if you can't get enough CVM and the Boz, make sure you go check that out once it hits onto the Open Series archives, as well as unboxings and much more. Again,
and be real, who could get enough of us?
Not a single person.
I know I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch the coverage.
We're going to go watch it tonight.
Oh yeah, I'm not even going to sleep.
Can we upload it?
Yeah.
Again, that's at youtube.com/Star City Games. Make sure you subscribe to the Star City Games YouTube channel. That way you can be notified when new things get posted all the time, and it is absolutely free.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and hop back. John Taylor, John-Mikel Whalen, they're doing up their shuffling. While they're finishing up, let's go ahead and look at some questions that we had through Twitter. So you got a question we can look at?
Yeah, so actually I had someone on Twitter ask me if I thought Merfolk was good in this metagame and what could be added to make it better.
All right.
Yeah, pretty appropriate question. I think it's maybe not the best situated against some of the decks like Infect or Infinity. I mean, you've got Hercule's Recall, which is really good, but the Infinity deck can normally just replay all their stuff. But the Merfolk deck, I mean, you know, I think against the other really, really fast combo decks, it can have a little bit of a tough time. But I think overall it's still just kind of a solid, consistent deck. The metagame is never going to be that bad for it, but I don't think the metagame is ever going to be necessarily that great.
Yeah, I feel like whenever I see a Merfolk deck do well, it's fully foil.
Yeah.
Like, the Merfolk players that do well with Merfolk are the people that just play Merfolk.
Yeah.
Like, they don't play any
Forever.
other deck. Their deck is all foil, has been since, you know, it was a great legacy deck back in the Mental Misstep days.
Yeah.
Like, they've just played Merfolk forever and ever, and they just continue to do well with it because they know everything inside and out. Like John Taylor, he's been playing Merfolk for a very long time, always does well with it. You know, I feel like it's always on the outside looking in, just right on that edge of potentially being a real good deck. But if your Merfolk deck is foil, you're probably going to do well with it.
So that's the key. Is it something like if your whole deck's foil, then all your Merfolk get +0, +1? Is that how it works?
Super secret tech.
Yeah.
All your premium cards get +1/+1.
I will say from playing Jund that I've never lost to Merfolk unless they play Cure the Great Glass Spinner, and then I've never beaten Merfolk.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best card they're going to have against an attrition-y 1-for-1 deck.
Yeah, I have nightmares about that card.
Just use your Abrupt Decay.
You know, it just never works out that way. I don't know what it is. I don't know what kind of voodoo magic the Merfolk player has, but when they have Kira, I just never have Abrupt Decay.
I can definitely understand that. I used to, well, I've beat a lot of Pack Rats, but
Yeah.
I would always draw my answer for Pack Rat like the turn after it would be relevant, like during that standard format, and would just have to like crawl and scrape and fight tooth and nail to try and stay in the game once it got going.
Yeah. Pack Rat was, I know a lot of people hated that card, but I always liked it when my opponents played it.
I liked it. I think it was just one of those cards that it just kind of changed the paradigm of thinking on Magic.
Yeah, for sure. We could certainly have a pretty long discussion about that card, I think. maybe that's a good topic for an article if it ever gets reprinted.
Maybe. So looks like we got John-Mikel Whalen is tanking here on his hand. John Taylor looks like he kept it fairly quickly. I can imagine that John-Mikel Whalen is his hand with these amulet decks. A lot of times your hand is just like missing a piece.
Yeah.
And the rest of the hand is just atrocious. But if you like draw this piece in the first two cards, like you win the game.
Seems like normally you would just keep those hands.
Well, you would think that, but now with the mulligan rule,
yeah, the first mulligan is
like I feel like
free.
This is like the deck that it has just done the most.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like he did mulligan,
So he's already
decided
at
to
6.
keep, and then scried to the bottom.
Okay.
So John Taylor with his Aether Vial on turn 1, which is exactly what he's wanting to see. John-Mikel Whalen with a Tularia West tapped and passing the turn back. It looks like he does have 2 amulets in his hand and a sleight of hand, so there's a lot of potential to be explosive there, but he just doesn't have much going on just yet.
So what Josh wants to do here is if he can use his mana to disrupt the Amulet Bloom player and use his Aether Vial to deploy threats, that would really be the literal best case scenario. The Merfolk deck usually doesn't have enough disruption to actually occupy all of its mana, but that would probably be the best thing that John Taylor could do this game.
So it looks like John-Mikel Whalen is, he cast his Serum Visions, he's drawn a card, but there's no lands in the next 2, and that's really what he's looking for. So he's just going to pass without playing another land, which is not the best news for him. Hopefully, John Taylor's hoping that he can take advantage of this.
Man, John-Mikel Whalen's really lucky that that Ghost Quarter's not a wasteland.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things about Amulet is these types of starts can be deceiving because John-Mikel Whalen could actually win next turn.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the amulet. All he needs is a bounce land and Titan.
He has a double amulet, and it looks like he has a Summer Bloom in his hand. So really, he's just looking for a bounce land, and he can just actually win and do 20 points of damage in one turn when he has double amulet, because he's able to sequence everything. So he gets a Slayer Stronghold twice to make it a 10-8. Or a 10-6, and then give it double strike. So
I am pretty happy we have you in the booth because I would not have seen that line of play.
So John Taylor does have a Ghost Quarter that he could break it up. So it's not something that's eminent, but at this point, if John-Mikel Whalen is able to get these 2 amulets in play, John Taylor just has to be scared for the majority of the game.
Yeah, and John Taylor fortunately has one Merfolk Lord on the battlefield, but he really needs to get a bit more. If he can deploy another Lord in this combat step, that would be ideal.
And it looks like he has 2 Ghost Quarters in play now.
Yeah.
So John Taylor's just going to go ahead and activate his Mutavault, play a second Ghost Quarter, battle in for 5. And with these Merfolk, the damage starts to add up really quickly. So if John Taylor decides to put another Lord onto the battlefield this turn, and then next turn draws another one to put it onto the battlefield, he could end up looking at 10, upwards of 15 damage here and just actually kill John-Mikel Whalen next turn.
Yeah, the damage from Merfolk is unlike a lot of other decks in that with each creature that comes into play, the damage essentially scales up exponentially.
So John-Mikel Whalen is drawn for the turn. Looks like he hit a Ghost Quarter, which is not the bounce land that he was looking for.
Yeah. One thing to note about this is John Taylor's Lord of Atlantis and his Aether Vial. Do you see similarity between the two?
I do.
Yeah, they're both foil, and you said that was the key to winning with Merfolk.
Yeah, along with his basic islands. Looks like one of his Ghost Quarters foil. In fact, the majority of his deck is foil.
I think we have a winner.
He's been playing it forever.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Just means you care about it.
Yeah.
You're down with the fish. He probably has filet-o-fish sandwiches when he goes to McDonald's. He probably just has a freezer full of fish sticks.
Oh, man.
He had a salmon salad last night for dinner.
How often do you think he goes to SeaWorld?
I mean, he's in Charlotte, in North Carolina, so probably not very often.
At least once or
but
twice a summer.
If he could, I'm sure he would.
Yeah.
So it looks like John-Mikel Whalen's just going to cast an Ancient Strains here. I imagine he's looking for a bounce land. He did find one, but it's not going to do a whole lot considering that he has 2 Ghost Quarters on the battlefield.
Yeah, John-Mikel Whalen really wanted to do something a bit more powerful by now. He's given John Taylor a little bit of time to develop his board, see a few more cards in his deck, and actually mount a defense.
Now, it's actually pretty interesting when you look at these decks, is that, with double Amulet, John-Mikel Whalen is just, very close to be able to win the game at any given point.
Yeah.
But with just a Lord of Atlantis, an Aether Vial, and a Mutavault in play, from 15, John Taylor could very well just win the game at any point too.
Yeah. And now we're going to see one of those Ghost Quarters get used.
Yep, so one of the Ghost Quarters is going to get used. This is going to get him a forest. He can still cast Summer Bloom, but that second Ghost Quarter. So if John had not found the second Ghost Quarter, he was at risk of getting attacked for 20 this turn.
Yeah, that is pretty insane. John Taylor hopefully is going to kill Michael Whalen in the next maybe 2 turns. I think that would sort of be ideal for him. He's going to need a little bit of help, but he really doesn't want to give John-Mikel Whalen too much time because he's only has a few pieces of disruption. With 1 Ghost Quarter gone and only another one available, his shields are going to be down soon.
So now, this is actually interesting because John-Mikel Whalen can play a Ghost Quarter for his first land, hit John Taylor's Ghost Quarter, play a bounce land, which is going to generate 2 mana, and then he can play his other amulet, and then his next bounce land is going to generate 4 mana. So he can get up to 5 mana this turn, but he's going to need something else to be able to continue to go on this turn.
It almost seems like he's hoping that John Taylor uses his Ghost Quarter on maybe the Teleria West.
Ooh, absolutely.
Because that would bump him up to 6 mana. That would be...
Yeah, if he boarded in the second basic forest, he could Primeval Titan this turn if he has access to it, if John Taylor uses his Ghost Quarter.
That is quite the tricky play if that ends up happening. That would be sneaky.
Yeah, it'd be real sneaky. Mm-hmm. Oh, he is going to go for it.
So let's see if the second forest is in.
Yeah, did John-Mikel Whalen board his second forest in? Because he only has 1 in the main and then 1 in the sideboard. And I usually like to board it in against these decks with Spreading Seas. It's
an island.
Oh, he has a forest and an island in his main. Oh, he does have an island. Okay, this is going to be good enough.
Wow. So John-Mikel Whalen kind of cornered John Taylor into a bad scenario for him.
If John Taylor doesn't have a creature that he can put onto the battlefield off of this Aether Vial, and John-Mikel Whalen has a way to find Primeval Titan this turn, he can do 20 points of damage.
Let's see if he does it. Oh, and he even gets to play...
You know what? He can find Primeval Titan because he does have a Teleria West. Well, no, that's going to be 8 mana, so he's still going to be 1 short.
Because of that island coming into play, he's actually able to play the amulet before the bounce land, so he's even able to get more mana.
Yeah, so he's able to get 8.
And we are off to the races.
Oh, he already had a Titan in hand, so yeah, unless there's a...
Ooh, lolly. This deck is a riot.
Yeah, so unless John Taylor has something he can put onto the battlefield to block, he's going to take 20 points of damage here.
And this is turn 4 for John-Mikel Whalen?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 Ghost Quarters, no big deal.
Use Ghost Quarter your Ghost Quarter. Now, had John Taylor not used his Ghost Quarter in response there, John-Mikel Whalen would not have been able to do this.
Yeah, that was extremely clever on John-Mikel Whalen's part. Really cool play. That sort of stuff you just do not see very often.
Yeah. So here with the attack, he's able to get a Vesuva to copy the Boros Garrison and a Sunhome Fortress of the Legion. So because of the double untap, he can get 4 mana, red, red, white, white, from the Vesuva copying the Boros Garrison, which is exactly what he needs to activate Sunhome Fortress of the Legion and give it double strike. And now it's a 10-6 doing 20 points of damage.
Is that good?
Is that good?
I think it's pretty good. I think it's probably going to be good enough to win this game.
Well, John, it looks like he does have a creature he can put into play. And he can block with his Harbinger of the Tides, which is also foil, meaning he knows his stuff. It's not quite going to bounce it.
If only it tapped.
And now next turn, what John-Mikel Whalen can do is he can use his Slayer Stronghold that's in his hand to give his Primeval Titan Vigilance, so he doesn't have to worry about another Harbinger of the Tides from John Taylor.
And I believe he's got a Pact of Negation in his hand, so he's really got all of his bases covered.
Absolutely. This hand turned out to be very good for John-Mikel Whalen because he just walked John Taylor right into the trap.
Yeah.
Right into the trap.
And I mean, there's only 2 basic lands.
Yeah,
and
there's 2 basics. And in John Taylor's defense, until recently, these Amulet decks have only been playing 1 basic forest in the main and maybe 1 in the sideboard. They haven't really been playing an island until very recently when they switched over to sleight of hand.
Which is probably in direct relation to more people playing Ghost Quarters.
Yep. So it looks like here John Taylor just is going to attack for 3 with his Mutavault, pass the turn. John-Mikel Whalen does have another Summoner's Pact in his hand. However, I have to imagine he's going to use his Slayer Stronghold to give his Primeval Titan Vigilance. That way he's not going to get it bounced off of a Harbinger of the Tides entering the battlefield off of this Aether Vial.
Yeah, we are getting ready to rumble in the jungle, and John Taylor's going to take a trip to Frown Town.
Yeah, so it looks like he's going to transmute his Chilaria West and find a Slaughter Pact. Let's see what land he plays this turn. I have to imagine it's going to be the Slayer Stronghold.
You know, in this game, the Amulet Bloom deck, it almost played like a Storm deck, where it kind of did nothing exciting, nothing exciting, nothing exciting, and then on one turn, it just did everything.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, pretty impressive. I think a lot of people have the impression that it doesn't really function that way, but I think the people who are really calling for Summer Bloom to be banned are the ones who know what's up.
I mean, like we've seen so far in these 3 games, that card is not remotely fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, also last weekend we saw a lot of it too.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I remember one of the feature matches, it was
Bobby had like some 5-minute turns because of Summer Bloom.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing turn 3, there were 4 Titans in play at once, which was just wild.
That's a lot of Titans.
Yeah, that's a lot of Titan.
All right, so now at this point we have an 8-6 Haste Vigilance Primeval Titan attacking John Taylor. He is at 2. John-Mikel Whalen does have a Slaughter Pact in his hand that he's transmuted for. Writing's about on the wall at this point. So John Taylor can put like another Lord into play. Even then, they would both be 3/3s and die to the trample damage.
Yeah, let's see what John Taylor has.
He does have another Harbinger of the Tides. So had John-Mikel Whalen not used Slayer Stronghold, he could have got that bounced.
Yeah.
Very heads-up play by John-Mikel Whalen.
And that's match. Well, that's the way it goes.
Yeah, so it looks like John-Mikel Whalen is going to take this match against John Taylor with his Amulet Bloom deck. He's going to move on to 7-1, which is going to lock him for day 2. And he won. I honestly would like to say he won this game 3-0, considering he gave away the first game by not being heads up against a potential spreading seas coming from his opponent. But either way, we saw there how Amulet Bloom is just one step ahead of the Merfolk deck at almost every single point, even though it looked like John Taylor had a chance to try and put that game away in game 3.